What's good, people? Time for another Magic Man review. Today, got a twofer. That's right, two for the price of one. Now, this book, they're both by about the concepts put forth by Mauro Biglino, and this one is it's a Giorgio Catalano. Oh, excuse me if I pronounce the names wrong. They're in Italian. It's an interview. It's an interview format of Mauro Biglino, and this is a really, really good book. Okay, it's called The Naked Bible. All right. Now, this book it can be a little bit difficult to read because it's done in an interview format, but he goes over a lot of good information in this book. A lot of good information specifically about the Bible. Now, the truth of about the Bible is that it's not really what people think it is. It's not what's being taught by Christianity. Now, this gentleman right here, Mauro, I'm just gonna say it, Mauro, because I don't want to screw up his last name, but he's a scholar. He's a linguistic scholar, and what he specializes in is ancient Hebrew and ancient Latin and Greek, Aramaic, Assyric, all these different forms of ancient languages. And the Vatican hired him to go back and to get the authentic truth about what was in the Bible. Okay. Now, when I say the Bible, I'm just going to go with what most, I would say, Americans are familiar with. Not the New Interpreted Version. I'm going to go with the King James Bible. So when I say the Bible, most of you who are watching this video can relate and say, "Oh yeah, the King James Bible." All right. And but there are many different Bibles. Okay, many different Bibles. Okay, and that's a recurring theme that different churches and different sects of Christianity had different Bibles. There's, the Greek Bible, and there's also what we refer to, as the Old Testament, which was in Hebrew. And he goes back and he translates the words. And what you find out about these when you read these books is there really is no God in the Bible. In the Bible, what they're referring to is a Semitic deity or an entity known as Yahweh. Okay, and Yahweh is not the Hebrew name for God. Yahweh is the name of a deity, of a Semitic deity that existed back in the day. Let me see. Now, this book right here, done in interview format. Harder to read, kind of goes back and forth a little bit, but it's a great book. A great book. And but the book that's really more concise, really, is written by Mauro Biglino, and it's called Gods of the Bible. Okay, it goes through it step by step, and it shows us really what they were talking about, because a lot of Christians were born into Christianity. Their parents were Christian and they're raised in the Christian church, and all their life they've been given these messages by their preachers, or about what the Bible means. So when they read the Bible and it's like, man, this doesn't make any sense, the preacher comes out with their own spin on it all, okay? And it makes sense to them. So, oh, okay, that's why it says this. That's spin, okay? It's not true. These books get into the truth about what the Bible says. Now, if you weren't born into Christianity, and you actually read the Bible, as an adult or a young adult, you come away thinking to yourself, this God of theirs is really screwed up, and it doesn't make any logic. It doesn't, they're claiming that this God is omnipotent and all-loving, and that is not the God that is in the Old Testament. Okay, it is not. It's not even really the God that's in the New Testament. All right. I have to tell you that these two books right here, all right, this one specifically, is one of the best books that's ever been written. Okay, really, really helps you understand what the Bible is all about. Okay, or at least the books that are in the Bible. So a lot of books have been taken out in the Bible. Okay, a lot of the stories that were being told in the times of Jesus aren't in here, or well, not in the Bible, excuse me. But there's a certain book that's been lost to antiquities called the Wars of Yahweh. Okay, the wars of a Semitic deity fighting other Semitic deities, or Anunnaki. Okay, in the book, in the Bible, what it's describing to you, if you go back and read how it was originally written, Yahweh was one of the Elohim, which does not translate into God. He was one of the higher beings that came from the sky. Okay, and it's hard for Christians to understand this because they're reading a translation of a translation of a translation. The Bible is actually one of the oldest games. I don't know if you played these games if you're a kid, maybe called Chinese Whispers. That's probably politically incorrect to say these days, but it's also called Telephone. Now, when you were a kid, or at least when I was a kid, we had this game called Telephone. And we would sit around in a big circle, and the teacher would write out a message, right? And she would give it to the next kid, all right? And you would whisper into the next kid's ear, and you go all the way around in a circle. And by the time it came around back full circle, the message was totally scrambled up and confused. Okay, it was something totally different. Okay, and that's what happened to the Bible. It's been translated, retranslated, put into different languages, and it's lost its meaning from what it was originally written. And you can't really. It's hard to tell Christians this. Okay, don't even try. All right, just hand them this book if they want to read it, if they're interested. But you have to understand that a lot of them have built their life around these beliefs, and they'll take it if you tell them, hey, these what you believe in is not true. They will take it as an attack upon themselves because it's part of their identity. Okay, you're not, in their minds, you're not attacking you're attacking. You're not trying to come out with the truth. Okay, you're attacking them. You're attacking their belief system. Okay, and that happens a lot. You know, if you told an ancient Greek that there was no Zeus or there was no Poseidon, well, they're going to come up to you and say, well, you know, what are you, some kind of atheist? You know, are you a barbarian? You don't believe in the gods? You know, and Plato did that. And it's one of the reasons they didn't like him, right? Or was it Socrates? I think, no, it's Plato. One of the laws Plato did, that's exactly what he did. He was having a conversation with the Spartan, saying, where do you get these beliefs in these gods of yours? And he was going forth using logic to show them their belief system was irrational. Okay? That's what this book does. It goes forth here. And the really good thing about this book is he goes forth and says, what if we just assume what they wrote, the ancient people wrote in the Bible, was literally the truth? They believed it was the truth. Back in the day, not just for orals, they had an oral tradition. They would tell these stories orally. They would memorize this stuff orally. But to put it to paper was expensive back in the day. Okay, it wasn't like now you just go to the store and buy a pack of paper. Paper was very expensive. Okay, so for them to put these words down onto paper, it was very, very important to them. Okay, so instead of having an interpretation of what it means, He goes through there and says, hey, what if we just assume what they wrote is what they meant to write? They're not going to waste time on with paper, expensive paper, writing down fairy tales, okay? What I want to go back to the point that the God, if you understand that the God in the Bible is not the God, but is a God, you have to you come to a very good understanding of the Bible, because Yahweh is he's a piece of work. He really is. He's getting intoxicated. He's having his people go murder men, women, and children. He floods the entire earth for something that he didn't foresee. Okay? Now, this doesn't make any sense if you talk about an all-knowing, all-loving God. It does make sense if you're talking about a pagan deity, because this is the kind of things pagan deities did all the time. Okay. Now, one of the good things I wanted to, for my Christian viewers who are going to look at this video and say this guy is just recommending total heresy, Okay, I want to give you some good news about the information in these books, is that there is no real Satan or Lucifer in the Bible. It was something that was inferred by the people who wrote the Bible, and they wrote it about the political leaders of their time. Lucifer, the fallen one, was actually being referred to. They were referring to a Persian king, and the Persians who actually released the Hebrews from captivity, and they had treated them fairly, had trade relationships with them, but when the Persians kind of went against them, they turned on the Persians, and they referred to one of the Persian kings as the fallen one, and they interpreted that as the fallen one. They wrote it down. It was kind of in disguise because they couldn't really say it, because they were weak and the Persians were strong. The same thing with what is the book? Revelations. Okay, when they're talking about the apocalypse, which means change. Okay, he was writing about a Roman emperor. He was not writing about the end of the world. Okay, it was more or less he was writing about Nero. Okay, now if you have to go through and study the stuff. Okay, because I studied the Bible, I study where it comes from, I read all kinds of stuff, and what you get really from these preachers and these churches, they're not real. It's not real. And I like to keep it real. I like to know the truth, or at least come as close to it as I can. And these books really do help. They really did. This is one of the best books. If you really want to know about the Bible in its true form, go back to somebody who can read ancient Hebrew, ancient Latin, ancient Greek, Aramaic, and the works. Can you do that? I can't. Sorry. I can't go back into the ancient text, to the scrolls, and interpret it for you. And you know what? Neither can those preachers out there preaching the word. Okay? But the good news is what I wanted to really impart to the Christians is, you don't have to worry about these groups of Satanists or Luciferians, because they're worshiping an entity that isn't real. Okay? It's an entity that they made up. Are there evil, demonic, or, supernatural entities out there? Maybe. I don't know. Okay? I'm not getting into that. But I can tell you, Satan and Lucifer were not some fallen angel. Okay? That's stuff that the church made up. Alright? So you don't have to worry about these people. Yeah, there are Satanists out there. There are Luciferians, but they're worshiping something that's made up, just like these religions. Okay. You have to realize that most of these religions were invented. Okay, Judaism wasn't really a religion till like the Middle Ages, and it was really invented by the rabbis. It didn't really come forth as a coherent religion until they wrote the Talmud and stuff like that. I mean, they did have stuff going back, with their patriarchs and things like that, and they had, the Old Testament. Christianity was invented by Saul. Okay, the man who saw the light. He was, I think, he was a Jewish guy working on behalf of the Romans, persecuting Christians. Actually, when I say persecuting, he was persecuting them. But then he saw the light, okay? And then he changed his name to Paul, and most of the New Testament was written by Paul, okay? So he invented pretty much Christianity, okay? Islam was invented by Muhammad, okay? Allah was the name of a moon goddess, Allah, the moon. And even if you read the Quran, the sun and the moon goddesses, God and goddess, had daughters, and the names of the daughters are in the Quran. And if you study the life of Muhammad, you'll realize that Muhammad pretty much came up with Islam. If you tried to read the Quran, it's they get their dates really screwed up. This stuff is invented, people, and it's invented to give a code, a morality, a way of life for human resources, people. Because people are going to do messed up stuff. But if you tell them that there's some God in the sky that's going to strike them down with lightning, they're going to go to hell. They're simple-minded. They're going to believe you. I mean, these people believe this stuff on television, okay? If you have some kind of authority and you tell them there's a God in the sky, or there's gods, or there's demons, and that you're not going to go to the heaven, to paradise when you die, if you act up, if you don't do what the rulers say you should do, then you're going to toe the line. You're going to be a good human resource, because you want to go to paradise and see all your dead relatives and bark at the moon and bang your gongs and howl and stuff like that, That's what humans do. If you really want to get to the truth of the matter, get this book. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. And you realize the contradictions in the Bible, but one of the greatest things about this book is the contradictions. They start off right from the bat. Okay, let me see. If you read the story about Adam and Eve, you're going to realize right off the bat that this doesn't make sense. And Adam and Eve, Yahweh tells Adam and Eve, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay? Because you will die. Okay? But the serpent tells Eve, go ahead, eat it. He's just afraid you're going to gain knowledge like he has. You're not going to die. And she ate the apple, gave it to Adam, and they gained the knowledge that Yahweh had. So guess what? And they didn't die. Alright? So Yahweh, God, lied to them, and the snake, the serpent, told them the truth. So you read these contradictions and you realize that it's not what it's being sold as. It's one of the greatest stories ever sold. Okay? Great stuff in here. I've asked this another good point in this book is about Jesus and the money changers. Okay? Nobody asked why Jesus. It wasn't forbidden for them to exchange sacrifices for money. They bring money to the temple for their sacrifice. That was not forbidden. So why did Jesus do it? Okay? They say, well, there's money changers in the temple. The temple wasn't big enough for money changers. Okay? Besides the point, it wasn't illegal. People miss out on the point. Why did this all-knowing and all-living God require animal sacrifice? Doesn't sound like, the kind of God that they're selling me on. Anyways, if you want to get more into it, I highly recommend these books. They're some of the best books I've ever read. I kind of already knew some of the stuff in here because I studied it before when I studied the Bible, and I took college courses in it and really got into depth. Don't want to make this video too much longer, but I highly recommend these books. The one I'm going to recommend is Gods of the Bible by Mauro Biglino. Until next time, people.